what's up, wrestling fans? It's your boy E here with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm here. Y'all are excited like I am. I obviously love putting on these shows. I'm sure that all my audience members are as well because this is the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast. So, thank you guys so much for sticking into the ride. That is the grind of the WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan. That is the professional wrestling industry, and we're all in it together. We're in it, never to quit it. So once again, thank you for tuning into the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you lined up today. We have our AEW Dynamite review. We also have our Thursday Night Wrestling preview, which consists of Impact Wrestling review, also Ring of Honor, and we're gonna kind of segue into what Tazz kind of said to young athletes trying to aspire and become professional wrestlers, basically telling them to be smart about their bodies in terms of training and ring experience and yada yada yada. You know, we're going to talk about that a little later, and we're going to end it. We're going to cap it all off with our Thursday night superstar spotlight on AEW World Heavyweight Champion Swerve Strickland. So that should be pretty awesome. So make sure you stick to the very, very end to find out about your boy Swerve. But before we move on and do absolutely anything with this podcast, I want to remind you guys to use the tips and donations link at the gsmcpodcast.net. We get a number of questions that come in during the show from viewers like you. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, I urge you guys to use the tips and donations link at the gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions up on top so I can see it, so we can talk about it. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you want to talk about in terms of the wrestling industry, or hey, just spark up a conversation. I'm so easy. No, I'm just kidding. No, so again, the link is the gsmcpodcast.net. And honestly, guys, it really, really does go a long way. It really, really helps the show. I'll leave a positive review, criticism. I take criticism well. Love it. Feedback is a gift. Peace, love, and positivity, baby, all the time at the GSMC Sports Network. I have it tattooed on my lower back. You want to see? Just kidding. No, no, I don't have it. What? I don't have that tattooed on the back. Like, that's so weird. Why would you even say that? I'm just kidding. Let's just move on. Let's just move on. I think that's the smartest move. So let's go on and dig on into it. We have our AEW Dynamite review. So Dynamite started with Tony Khan of producing live in Jacksonville, in the offices of Jacksonville. You saw the Jacksonville Jaguars emblem. You also saw him with like multiple computers, like in he was wearing a neck brace, and ultimately he was cut off by the Elite. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was very interesting. You saw the Young Bucks taking over the show. Classic. I know there's been a lot of scrutiny about this storyline in terms of them trying to kind of use the NWO kind of aspect of it. And so far, I think their ratings are up. Their ratings are up in terms of AEW Dynamite. So honestly, whatever happened, like, what can I really say about it? What can I really say about it? If it's working, it's working. It's not worth fixing if it's not broken. You know what I mean? So Tony Khan totally selling kayfabe, and so the Young Bucks come out and basically are like, "Oh, what happened? Like, why are we not fired? Why are we here?" And they said the reason why they're here is because they have their founders contract clause, which is kind of interesting. But hey, that's AEW. That's the way they kind of want to swing it. So I was like, all right, I'll buy into it. I'll see what's up. So ultimately, they're not fired, they're not suspended, or they're not kicked out of AEW. Ultimately, they're running the show. Although there's semantics and there's shenanigans all over the show, they are still in the position of power, which amazes me. But ultimately, maybe this is kind of building up to a storyline that, like, it's an ultimate shocker. Kind of like what you had with the NWO taking over WCW, to the point where it was essentially like NWO kind of had their own clique against the whole World Championship Wrestling locker room. So I don't know if they're going to kind of create something like that. Obviously, if they do, I hope the creative writers are doing it right. I hope it's performed well, it's booked well, because AEW really needs it. AEW really, really needs it. They had a good show this week on Dynamite, so let's just keep that momentum going forward. And who cares? Who gives a rat's ass about people saying that? Oh, they're just copying the NWO. They're just mimickers. They're pretenders. They're copycatters. Like, oh yeah, but like, What about Vince McMahon? What about Vince McMahon in terms of the NWO? You had D Generation X. Interesting. You had the you had the Judgment Day in modern day. Just because somebody did it well in the past doesn't necessarily kind of mean that you're a copycatter. Because who can really honestly overdo what the NWO did in professional wrestling? Nobody. Absolutely nobody can do it. It's a storyline that it's kind of a gold mine. It's kind of a gold mine having this stable of wrestlers that are willing to do everything they can to get fans to hate them, to get fans to absolutely like despise them, but they keep winning, winning, and winning. Obviously, you saw the Young Bucks picking up the AEW World Tag Team titles at Dynasty. You saw Kazuchika Okada defeat Eddie Kingston for the AEW Continental Championship. So honestly, like, what are you complaining about? Wrestling fans, why are you complaining that NWO is, oh, they're stealing it. They're stealing it. Like, just think about it, dude. If anybody was accused of stealing, it'd probably be like the WWE for the most part. Like, that's, I think so much stuff has been done in the world itself and in terms of wrestling that stealing is no longer, the issue. No longer the issue. It's storylines that can be picked up, storylines that can possibly propel your organization or wrestling promotion to the next level, or just storylines that could, keep your company afloat. Why not just, use what you got? You have resources in this world, so use them. So, kind of moving on. So then you saw Swerve Strickland come out, the new AEW World Champion, finally addressing the AEW universe. He was basically talking major crap on the EVPs, telling them how like what they did was, dude, that was low, dog. That was very, very low. And this was Swerve who said this, not me. That he said it was quote unquote, it was a bitch move, man. It was a bitch move. You're going out running rampant all over AEW. Who the hell do you think you are? You take out Tony Khan, and now you think you rule the world just because of your founders clench in your contract. It's obviously I kind of hope that somebody's going to take down the EVPs, and the way they kind of bring it down. Hopefully, they kind of have, the storyline and the build up and the right amount of superstars and the right talent, you know, to kind of make this storyline absolutely something astronomical to kind of help AEW kind of propel themselves in the industry of professional wrestling. Because if this thing flip flops, this may be kind of the demise of AEW. Because, like the demise of WCW, where WCW was, they were kind of caught in a fray where they were trying to promote old superstars, old semantics, also old like storylines, like a formation of the NWO, taking over the industry, doing whatever the hell they want, fighting the chairman, basically stating that their show was theirs. So this is something that AEW has to be really, really careful with. So within the next couple of weeks, pay attention. Pay attention, because this is their, I think this is their future. I think this is their future. They created this stable of popular wrestlers. Just think about it. You have Jack Perry, who's and then you have the Young Bucks. Very interesting in terms of the professional wrestling industry. Definitely one of the most known tag teams in the professional wrestling industry. And then you have international star. He wrestled in New Japan Wrestling. He was in Ring of Honor. You have Kazuchika Okada representing the AEW Continental Championship. You have those four guys together, hoping to bring the industry and propelling them into a stardom or into a future that just proves, that they're here to stay. They're here to stay. So, we'll see what's what. I'll give it a couple weeks. I know I've been very skeptical, skepticism 101 in terms of professional wrestling. But we'll see. We'll see. Don't judge, don't hate, don't say that, they're copycatters, the NWO, so what? But ultimately, just give it a shot. WWF is better with the competitor. WWF was better with WCW. WWE was slightly better than TNA with Kurt Angle, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Jay Lethal, The Monster Abyss, and Jeff Jarrett. Competition creates storylines in a way. Iron sharpens iron. That's, something that a lot of wrestlers and, well, no, combat sports, that's kind of like the slogan that you kind of tell your person, like, you're going to fight a guy who's probably going to end up beating you. He's very, very strong. He's going to kick you down. He's going to kick you down. But guess what? We're not going to quit. We're not going to quit. And even if we lose this match, the most important thing is not you wallowing and feeling sorry for yourself. It's what you decide to do after. So, we're hoping that AEW right now, they're in this boxing match with WWE. They're in Haymaker, man. They're getting Mike Tyson's like it's like damn near. It's like if Tyson fought like an infant kid. Like this is how bad it is. I'm just kidding. No, but like seriously, AEW right now they're in the corner. They're sweating it out, possibly even bleeding out right now. You have that trainer right there that's like, oh, I don't want to see anymore. Throw in the towel. Throw in the towel. But honestly, if you want to keep your company afloat, you have to make things work, man. Think of something different. Think of something that works for your company, your superstars. Most importantly, just something that just makes sense. Something that makes sense. So AEW, I'm rooting for you, man. So like I said before, we didn't really know who Swerve Strickland's opponent it was going to be at Double or Nothing. It was revealed that it was the patriarchy ruler, the leader of the group, Christian Cage. Christian Cage came back after that brutal last man standing match against Edge for the TNT AEW World Championship. I was a little shocked, to be honest. To be honest, I was a little shocked. I was like, all right, Christian Cage loses his championship and then disappears. Cool. And then he comes back to fight for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Like, I get it. Christian Cage is a huge legend. And of course, like, it was in Winnipeg. So he's a huge Canadian, like, historic wrestler who's obviously well known all over the land of professional wrestling. But I didn't really like it. I really honestly didn't like Christian Cage kind of coming into the picture right now. Once again, this could be bad booking because you have an old guy like Christian Cage, kind of like what WCW did in the past, was kind of book these older superstars to try to get over the young guys like Swerve. I just feel like you probably maybe could have made something more, kind of makes sense. Kind of makes sense in terms of like the younger generation superstars. But, like I said, we got to be patient. Hopefully AEW doesn't, they don't make the bad decision and just ultimately like, lay a bomb here. So, yeah, we'll see what's up. Adam Copeland, Edge, fought against Buddy Matthews of the House of Black for the TNT Championship. Speaking of the TNT Championship, it was a great match. It was a great match. These guys like fought through like 3 commercials, picture in picture. Definitely something interesting. Definitely, you didn't know who Adam Copeland was going to face at the Cope Open Challenge, but Buddy Matthews stepped up. Very, very good competitor, and at the end of the match, ultimately, Copeland got the win with a spear. But at the end of the match, that's kind of where like all the meat of this argument is. Kind of like the meat of what you want to take away from this match was because as soon as Edge won, he had the chair and he was ready to concerto. Buddy Matthews went black. Malachi Black is standing next to Edge, talking to him, saying, "Hey, do it, just do it. Make it like Nike and just do it." And even Buddy Matthews was kind of urging him on. Now maybe they kind of want to bring out a dark side in Edge, kind of like the Brood Edge, what kind of put him over. Like when he came back to the WWE from his industry, after he created a Judgment Day, he ultimately wanted to kind of create like kind of like a reimagined like kind of Brood, kind of like not like Gangrel and Christian, Matt, Jeff Hardy, Michael Hayes and stuff like that, but just kind of like just bring out the dark side of somebody. You bring out the dark side of something, kind of like what Sean Spears is doing with Ridge Holland in the NXT. But ultimately, it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. Maybe eventually you'll see Adam Copeland go toward House of Black. Who knows? It would be interesting to see what Adam Copeland does in any circumstances and stuff like that. So should be interesting. Next, we have Samoa Joe came back in his first in-ring competition since losing the AEW World Heavyweight Championship at Dynasty. He looked good. He looked very, very good. Of course, he kind of fought one of those squash match guys, kind of thing. But ultimately, Samoa Joe is still Samoa Joe. And if you're Samoa Joe being Samoa Joe, you're going to get Samoa Joe things. I'm just kidding. No, sorry if I'm confusing you. Try and keep up. So Samoa Joe doing Samoa Joe things. If you're going to keep doing Samoa Joe things, you're going to end up with Samoa Joe intentions, Samoa Joe accomplishments, Samoa Joe chances at titles after titles after titles because he's simply that good, Samoa Joe. I can't really complain about that. So glad to see Samoa Joe back in the squared circle in AEW. It's going to be awesome to see what they do with his booking. So I'm for it. I'm for it. Next, we have Chris Jericho against Shibata. Chris Jericho ultimately retained. That wasn't really the story here. The reason why Jericho really honestly won this match, and the solamente reason he kind of won this match, was that Big Bill, recent superstar formerly known as Big Cass, came out and he wanted to be under the Lionheart's watch. He wanted to be under his steeple. He wants to learn from him. Proteges. He's kind of like his Mr. Miyagi. So he kind of helped Chris Jericho pick up the win there. But Chris Jericho's not, Hook is going to come back and he's going to want that AEW FTW championship back. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see where they go with that. Obviously, right now, Hook is he's preparing for a return in AEW. I can't wait to see when he does. But right now, Chris Jericho with the FTW Championship is just kind of he's kind of doing his own thing. He's like throwing it in the fans' face. He's saying like, "Thank you for supporting me." They're like, "Dude, we're not supporting you," but at the same time, like that's what he just angers the crowd so much. That's what Chris Jericho is so good at. That's the reason why he gets paid by these companies like AEW, like WWE, like WWF, like WCW, because this guy he's special. He's special because think about it. You can put Chris Jericho in any storyline. Any storyline. He can either come out heel, be the victor, come out babyface, be the victor. He can be hated, come out as babyface. He could be babyfaced, come out as heel. That's just something versatile about Chris Jericho, and that's a lot of things that wrestling fans tend to forget about. It's good to have Chris Jericho in your company, and Chris Jericho has been with the AEW since the beginning. And obviously, AEW is kind of going through rough times right now. So you bet your ass that Chris Jericho is kind of doing anything he can to kind of get attention from wrestling fans because he wants this promotion to survive. And I feel like, behind the scenes, and I know this for a fact because I read a couple articles about it, that he really wants AEW to succeed. He really wants it to succeed because you're not just fighting WWE. That's not what it's about. These are just guys, wrestlers, people that have come from the TNA circuit, people who come from independent wrestling, Major League Wrestling, Lucha Libre Underground, the CZW. Also, they just want to be loved. That's what life's all about, right? You want to be loved. That's what the wrestling world's all about. You just want to be loved. You want to be appreciated. Being a wrestler is not easy. Not easy at all. For those who look down on professional wrestling, be like, "Oh, it's scripted. These guys don't fight to fight. Oh, watch UFC. It's not the same. It's not the same." And to put these, amazing physical specimens in that boat of, oh, it's I'm not allowed to say the word fake. It's just scripted. It's just absolutely, absolutely ridiculous. And I feel like the AEW is not necessarily fighting to take down WWE. They're just kind of fighting to just be like, hey, we're a wrestling brand. We're filled with wrestlers who love wrestling. We love fans who come to our shows who love wrestling. We just want to come here, do our show, do what we love, put on a show for people, be entertaining, and all of us leave the arena happy, healthy, and most importantly, as a family, as a wrestling family. So, that's how I feel like AEW is. I know this whole war, you have the Monday Night War in the past with WCW and WWF. Like that, cool, dude. Like that's awesome. But most importantly, this is a job. This is a job. And to kind of have like a nice little business you go to you go to work every day, you spend so much time with these people, they essentially become your family. They essentially become your family. And I feel like AEW doesn't, I don't think they give a rat's ass about beating WWE. I know Tony Khan has been getting a lot of scrutiny about, him saying like how WWE is the Harvey Weinstein and stuff like that. I think that's just classic, like shit talking. That's just what happens in sports. If you don't do it, then you're a chump. But ultimately, I feel like they just want to wrestle. Just want to wrestle. Let's just keep it wrestling. Let's just keep this live thing wrestling. And I am automatically just absolutely time is running out. So let's finish this up. So Kenny Omega came back. He was attacked. Kind of sucked. And the one thing that I kind of thought about after this promotion was because I was like, dude, who's gonna help Kenny Omega defeat the EVPs? Who's gonna try to defeat Okada? Who's gonna help him with Jack Perry? I'm interested to see maybe he gathers a group of dudes that are passionate about bringing them down. And hopefully, I can think of like a couple of names, like probably like Darby Allin. Darby Allin would be pretty cool. I'm not hopeful that Sting is going to come out of retirement to like kick some ass. I can imagine the Hangman Adam Page coming out. Ultimately, you kind of saw Swerve Strickland beaten down by the patriarchy, obviously like under the Elite's control. So it'd be cool to see Swerve Strickland kind of do that. But ultimately, who's gonna help Kenny Omega? Who's gonna help him? And yeah, there's somebody did help. Somebody did help, and it was the FTR. FTR, the Dash and Wilder. I've loved them ever since they're in WWE. They're revival. They were the revival. They were great wrestlers. Obviously, kind of my problem with WWE is that they put single stars together to create this super tag team, give them a title run, and it just messes up the tag team division. And that's probably why FTR was released from WWE. But they're doing a great job in AEW. Hopefully, they keep getting booked into these great matches. There's no doubt in my mind that we're going to have like just like this huge battle between the Elite, Kenny Omega, FTR, and that one person. And I feel like Tony Khan said, yeah, there's one more guy. There's one more guy who has the founder's clause, and he's also an EVP, and we don't know who it is yet. I know a lot of people assume it's Kenny Omega. It could be Hangman Adam Page. Who knows? But hopefully, like I said before, if it's done right, it's good for the company, it's good for wrestling, and it's all gravy, baby. So yeah. Well, don't go anywhere. Hope you guys liked the first segment. We talked about AEW, and we're gonna head into my Thursday night wrestling preview. We're gonna talk about Impact TNA Wrestling heading toward Under Siege, and we're gonna talk about Ring of Honor. So hey, don't go anywhere.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just to kind of reflect on real quick, we recently talked about AEW. Recently, the Elite has taken over AEW as a whole, destroyed Tony Khan, destroyed Kenny Omega. Who's going to help Kenny Omega? You saw FTR come out. Could they possibly figure out a way to create a faction of these guys that just want to bring the Elite down? Obviously, the Elite, you had the Young Bucks, Okada, and Perry. So it's going to be interesting to see what AEW does with that. And like I mentioned before, that this kind of booking really means a lot to AEW, in terms of their, their next success, because they've gotten a lot of scrutiny about like trying to mimic and copycat what made WCW so great. And it was NWO, the creation of NWO with Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So, yeah, that was what we talked about in the first segment. We're moving on to our second segment. But before we move on to that, I want to remind you guys to use the Tips of Donations link. We get a number of questions that come in during the show from viewers like you. So to ensure that your question gets read on air in front of millions of people, I ask you guys to use the Tips of Donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions on top so I can see it. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me something you want me to further elaborate on. Tell me what you want this show to be about. Give me your thoughts on promotions. Give me your thoughts on storylines. Give me your thoughts on potential superstar rivals, nice little rivalry here and there. Or maybe you want to see somebody go heel. I know recently I read an article about the possibility of Cody Rhodes going heel, and I got to be honest, I liked it. So, that could be something in the future. That's something we could definitely talk about. Remember to use the tips and donations link. Leave a positive feedback. It really does go a really, 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 really long way. At the GSMC Sports Network, we love peace, love, and positivity all day, every day. So, again, the link is at gsmcpodcast.net. So make sure you use that tips and donations link if you want to talk to this guy right here with the funny hairdo and the gray, button-up shirt. Um, anyway, so let's talk about Thursday Night Wrestling. And I know we are rapidly running out of, precious wrestling time. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Anyways, so we have our Thursday Night Wrestling preview. We're going to talk about Impact Wrestling. So it's the final stop before Under Siege. Miyu Yamashita is going to return to TNA tonight to fight Jordan Grace, putting the Knockouts Championship on the line against Yamashita tonight. Who will emerge victorious? Who's going to represent the women's division and the championship at Under Siege? Should be pretty interesting. I saw like a nice little tail of the tape between Jordan Grace and Miyu Yamashita. Jordan Grace, obviously, probably one of the best women's wrestlers in TNA Knockouts history. She's a 3-time Knockouts champion, 1-time Knockouts tag team champion, and the first ever TNA digital media champion. While Yamashita, she doesn't have that many accomplishments, accolades in her illustrious career in wrestling, but she's a 5-time champion in Tokyo Yashi Pro Wrestling. So those, shouldn't be ignored. Shouldn't, be swept under the rug per se. So it's going to be a good match tonight. It's going to be a great match. Next, we have Ace Austin versus Trey Miguel. The winner is going to fight Mustafa Ali at Under Siege for the X Division Championship. My bet, I really want to see Austin kind of propel his career, beat Miguel, fight, Mustafa Ali. But ultimately, I think the champion's just too strong right now. Mustafa Ali has a huge amount of momentum, huge amount of talent as a wrestler. Like I said, I remember seeing him at WWE, miss him to bits. But right now, he's kind of doing this thing with TNA as the X Division champion, and I don't really see his championship reign ending anytime soon. So, sad news for Ace Austin, Trey Miguel. But honestly, I think it'd be smart for TNA to kind of keep the strap on Ali. So we have Danny Luna against Alicia Edwards. Both of them representing their teams. Edwards, of course, is with Slamovich, and also you have Danny Luna with Spitfire, the Knockouts World Tag Team Champions. It's going to be interesting to see who wins here. At Under Siege, you're going to have Spitfire against Edwards and Slamovich at, like I said, Under Siege. And who's going to get momentum? This is a huge match. This is going to be big. This is going to be a big match, and it's definitely going to be an underlier. It's going to kind of, play spoiler, maybe even like a foreshadow of who's going to win at Under Siege for the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions. So, interested to see how that goes tonight. Next, we see Chris Bay. Chris Bay, one half of ABC, will fight the X Division champion Mustafa Ali. And it just kind of, will Bay help, either, Trey, or will he help, Austin? Like, who knows? He has a chance to kind of soften and weaken Mustafa Ali, but Mustafa Ali also has the chance to just, do what he does best, be all you can be. Ultimately, defend, his legacy and build momentum toward his match. Maybe this is going to kind of foreshadow who's going to win the X Division Championship. But, like I said, ABC, they're good. I like ABC. Chris Bay, he's a talented superstar, but I don't think he's at that level yet. I'm at the X Division kind of level. So, I really can see Mustafa Ali picking up this win tonight. But, that's just me. So yeah, and also we see Joe Hendry is going to apologize to AJ Francis and Rick Swann. I don't really know what all that means, but I mean, I guess that's a segment. I guess that's a way to get the TNA fans. Definitely, it's going to end out in a brawl. Recently, you saw AJ Francis costing Hendry the digital media championship against that crazy guy. Crazy Steve. And, lately after that, they've been kind of like in the same promotion. So I think it's going to eventually like kind of lead up to a match between AJ Francis, Joe Henry, something like hardcore status would be ideal. Would be pretty badass for, your favorite WWE wrestling attitude era kind of guy. So, and then let's move on to Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is live tonight as well. The Infantry is going to fight the Outrunners. The Moguls Embassy, Leona is going into singles competition tonight. You also see Nyla Rose will be in action, and we have a singles match between Queen Aminata and Robin Renegade. So Red Velvet will accompany Queen Aminata, and basically Aminata's right now she's fighting for just supremacy in this moment. She recently lost to Starks for the Women's World Championship. It was a tournament, and she just wants to show these guys. She wants to show MIT that she's not, just your, average wrestler, average women's wrestler that she's like a book in a library where, just put her on the shelf. That's it. Shouldn't be recognized. But honestly, she's kind of fighting for herself right now. She's fighting for a chance to kind of be more than she already is in Ring of Honor. So I'm for it. I'm for it. She has so much momentum. Kind of got caught in like awkward bookings, perhaps bad matchups, where she lost. Like I said, she lost against Starks in the the women's TV championship tournament. So this is kind of her chance. This is her chance to kind of show how Queen Aminata is definitely the future of Ring of Honor. But should be interesting to see going toward tonight's super card, so to speak. And then next we have Proving Ground. We have the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, the Undisputed Kingdom against the Crown. Aaron Solo is going to fight John Cruz tonight, and you have the Dark Order in trios competition, and so much more. So if if you're on Access TV or if you're on YouTube, only available to special guests who like pay an extra fee and stuff like that. It's definitely going to be worth watching. Like if you look back on any of the Ring of Honor or TNA, like these are good wrestlers. This is just just because they're not WWE or AEW for that matter, doesn't necessarily mean that their matches should be like seen as like second rate and stuff like that. This is a good promotion, absolutely 110%. So if you have a chance to watch it, and if you don't, look up YouTube highlights like like this guy right here. I love it, but at the same time, I'm like, I can't afford that. I'm just kidding. Like, anyways, moving forward. So don't go anywhere. Hope you guys liked the first two segments. Next, we're going to talk about Tazz and his tweets. How he basically advises young wrestlers about how to kind of create a wrestling career without kind of endangering your body. And we also take a look back at some wrestlers who have tragically lost their career in professional, or not live, lost their professional wrestling career in just a blink of an eye. So, hey, don't go anywhere.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just to kind of reflect on what we talked about AEW, and recently their bookings with the Elite, taking over Dynamite, Collision, and Rampage. And segment 2, we talked about a Thursday Night Wrestling preview. We talked about a couple of matches that are happening in Ring of Honor. We also kind of teed up TNA Impact before their Under Siege pay-per-view heading toward the weekend. But, we're going to head on to um, Taz advises young wrestlers to take it easy, man. Take it easy because the injuries that you sustain as wrestlers live with you through life. So, definitely we're going to talk and we're going to get into that right now. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get on into it. So, like I said, Taz, former ECW legend, formerly known as the Taz Mission, the number 13, the rabid, not the rabid Wolverine, because that's, a name we can't really say, but no, like the Tasmanian Devil, like so to speak. So, like I said before, Taz advises wrestlers to be smart about their bodies. Fans love the idea of wrestling greats to quote unquote have one more match, but that it's not the same. It's not the same, and it shouldn't be the same for legends that have retired or stepped away from wrestling, because ultimately the next move you make, and if it's botched, or if the wrestler on the other side botches it, it could be the end of your career. It can make you pay it paralyzed. You can turn into a paraplegic. Like, who knows? And this kind of makes me, think about, like, obviously The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, et cetera, Taz himself. With his recent beef with Chris Jericho, the fans right now in professional wrestling are kind of raving, kind of like, kind of pushing for a match between Taz and Chris Jericho. But Taz tweeted about his injuries from wrestling, said, and I quote, "It's been a brutal couple of years. Both of my shoulders, knees need to be replaced. 4 joints." He also added how training creates injuries just as much as wrestling does. He said, "This is not from the bumps, wrestling. It's from training too hard, like a caveman, trying to be big. I'm posting this for today's wrestlers. Please be smarter. Times have changed for the better," which is kind of Taz, basically saying how, wrestling's not what it was back in the day. And honestly, it's kind of good for wrestlers nowadays. They made the sport smarter. They made the shows, more PG, a little less hardcore. And I know I'm your attitude era kind of guy. And, I love the sight of blood, chair shots, tables, and yada yada yada. But ultimately, he's right. Taz was right, 110%. It's about preserving your locker room, so you guys can just create more and more memories, be more and more successful. Because look at what happened with AEW once when MJF got injured, once when CM Punk got injured and left. It really, really honestly does make a difference. Taz was right about that. Jericho has shoved Taz to the floor during a heated conversation with his son Hook. Taz says that he's happily retired. He had a tweet about possible last match. He was like, "Nah," and I quote, he said, "Nah, I'm happily retired from in-ring wars. I'm 55 years old, bro. I'm not one of those ex-wrestlers that needs one more match." And of course, the last match he fought in WWF was between Jerry Lawler and him at ECW One Night Stand in 2006. And the fight only lasted 35 seconds, which was kind of crazy. Taz ultimately choked out Jerry Lawler with the Taz Mission, ultimately kind of, bringing him down. So I kind of feel for Taz. He sees his son Hook in the wrestling industry, and ultimately he doesn't want him to get hurt. Of course, if you're going to fight for the FTW championship, obviously it's the World Championship. There's going to be hardcore. There's going to be, rules and stipulations that, probably kind of make you bleed. But Taz is, he's just stating why, like, he's kind of like, I don't want to sound a little cheesy. Have you guys ever watched A Christmas Carol with Ebenezer Scrooge, where Ebenezer Scrooge was just like this total jerk off, and like freaking he had to visit the ghost of present, and you kind of see all this bullshit that happens to you, and you're like, I don't want my life to happen like that. Why didn't somebody tell me? Oh, what could have changed my ways, and I would have wanted to not wind up here. Like, that's kind of like Taz. That's what Taz is like trying to say, and be like, dude, like, I have to have my both shoulders, both knees, injuries from like my legs to my knees to my ACL to my meniscus to my neck to my bone to my feet to my toes. Dude, like wrestling, it's a grind. It's an absolute grind. And if you're not absolutely for this, like go ahead and take a step away. Go ahead and take a step away from wrestling. So, you wouldn't be told by an expert doctor that you need 4 surgeries within, for basically like all your limbs and stuff like that. So, absolutely crazy, 110%. So, yeah, like I said before, I kind of want to reiterate and kind of talk about some wrestling stars along the way that kind of suffered injuries that ultimately made them lose their careers. Wrestlers, it's all, glory and stuff like that when you broadcast it on mainstream television, but just know that a wrestler takes his career, his life, and his future every single time he steps into that ring. In the blink of an eye, something bad could happen, and it's gone. Absolutely gone. So like I said, let's I want to talk about Bret Hart. Bret Hart was famous, absolutely famous. Every wrestler in the industry wanted to work with Bret Hart because yeah, he was the Bret the Hitman Hart. Yeah, he was super cool. If I'm fighting a match with this guy, I'm gonna get attention. I'm gonna be known all around the world. But most importantly, the best thing about Bret Hart that the WWF locker room really, really missed after Vince McMahon screwed him with the Montreal screw job and which forced him to go to WCW was that Bret Hart, he was known for taking care of his opponents. Taking care of his opponents. Like, I know at the same time, you're like, what are you talking about? These guys are fighting the hell, beating the hell out of each other. Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, he knew how to take care of his opponents. When, in moves, suplexes, fake strikes. I know I shouldn't say the word fake. Choreographed moves. He was quote unquote, and I read this from an article, that he was the safest wrestler to work with. So when you're in the ring with Bret Hart, you wouldn't have to worry about having, you know, you know, unprecedented things happen, which causes your career. So like I said, he left the WWF under controversy. He was betrayed by Vince McMahon. And honestly, he left for WCW. And after 2 years he was in WCW, he was placed in a spot with Goldberg. And Goldberg nailed Bret with a boot to the right side of the head. After that, Bret Hart started having chronic headaches and went to the doctor. And the doctor told him overall that he has to quit the thing that he loves most. That is wrestling. So, bam, career is over. Just in a blink of an eye, just in a move with a guy. I love Goldberg. Love Goldberg, but I remember watching him on WCW, man. See him on WWE now. And I'm not trying to be a hater, but he can't wrestle. Goldberg wasn't known for his wrestling abilities. He was known for more of like an entertainment kind of aspect of wrestling. You had the attitude. You kind of had that. I don't want to compare apples to oranges here, but he kind of had that Stone Cold Steve Austin look. Ultimately, I feel like I don't know. It kind of sucked for Bret, especially when he definitely had some more years under his belt. But ultimately that kind of ended in tragedy. Next, you have Sid Vicious. Sid Vicious on WCW Sin 2001. He had a Four Corners match with Scott Steiner, himself, Jeff Jarrett, and Animal. Sid was asked by WCW management to perform perform a big boot off the second turnbuckle, and it didn't end well. It really honestly didn't. He was a traditional big man. He was like that Big Show, the Lars Sullivan, the Braun Strowman. Yeah, you want to see something different, and yeah, you want to keep the crowd guessing for more. But if you have someone's strong suit is being grounded and well managed, doing his thing from a standing attack as opposed to an aerial attack, you probably shouldn't really mess with this. But WCW pushed the envelope. They told Sid to do a big boot off the second turnbuckle. Sid Vicious's leg snapped in half. Literally, it snapped in half. He broke his tibia and fibula. I watched this match, and it was awful. It was so awful. I saw him come down, and like when he landed on his leg, I saw him kind of go down, and I was watching it, I think with my sister and my brother, and I was like, "Did you guys just see that?" And they're like, "Whoa, what are you talking about?" And then the guy lifts up, like he tries to lift up his leg in agony, in awe that he probably heard a snap, or he probably felt some pain, and he's like, "What what the heck was that?" And the leg was like dangling. And oh god, it was one of the most horrific wrestling injuries in the industry's history. Definitely, 1010%. I felt bad for Sid Vicious. Sid Vicious was definitely like a, he was with the WWF Attitude Era, made it to WCW, and if WCW management would have never told this guy, hey, dude, jump off the second turnbuckle, do a big boot, it'd be so cool, dude, it'd be so cool. Everyone, and then he snaps his leg, and they're like, ah, looks over at the other guy, he's like, it was your fault. You told him to do this. And I'm like, I don't know. It was absolutely crazy. Definitely, he sued WCW for it. Definitely something that, like I said, in an instant, in a blink of an eye, a wrestler's career could, end. And this, honestly, Darren Drozdov. Darren Drozdov, former NFL player for 3 years. He started in ECW, then signed with the WWF/WWE. And it was kind of crazy how he kind of came into it because Vince McMahon, when he was signed, basically implored the idea that, hey, like you're known as the puke guy, right? You were on Monday Night Raw and, you puked in front of thousands of people. So this is your gimmick. This is what I want you to do. I'm Vince McMahon, you're fired. That was probably a bad Vince impersonation, but, hey, I'm getting better. Anyways, so D'Lo Brown tried to perform a running power bomb. Ultimately, didn't really land it pretty good. So he landed on his head, his neck, fracturing a two disc in his neck, leaving him quadriplegic. He recently passed away from the WWE, well, from just life in general. So of course, thoughts and prayers to his family. He was a good wrestler. I watched Drozdov do his thing. A lot of people can't really say that they made it to the WWE from football. And of course, you have Roman Reigns, The Rock, yada yada yada. It's cool and everything like that. But you know, it's just something that's very, very sensitive in terms of wrestling and stuff like that. Something that's the reason why, after what happened to him, turning him into a quadriplegic, why they decided to ban moves in wrestling. Why, like, the pile jobber was like a no, no, no. And ultimately, I kind of felt D'Lo Brown because D'Lo Brown ultimately was blamed, received a bunch of hate mail, got a bunch of like just bad, bad, bad PR after this incident. And in reality, it was both of them. Both of them were trying to perform a move that they obviously haven't really rehearsed together. Decided to do it on mainstream TV. Didn't really work out. Sucks that it kind of ended the way it did. Feel for both of them. So um, absolutely another worst case scenario of wrestling stars, like basically, kind of getting screwed here. Kind of getting screwed. Next, we're going to talk about Chuck Austin. Chuck Austin was a college athlete who decided to pursue a career in professional wrestling. He landed in WWF, and on December 11th, 1990, he teamed up with Lonnie Poffo against the Midnight Rockers, which consist of Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. Jannetty landed a Rocker D, the Rocker, Destroyer, I think it was. And it was like the Famouser. If you look at Mr. Ass or, Daddy Ass, he does the Famouser. And I think that was Dolph Ziggler's move as well. Ultimately, the leg came down on the back of the neck, down on the back of the head, and it was wrong. Marty Jannetty claims that it was due to the inexperience of Chuck Austin. That's the reason why what happened, which is absolutely kind of ridiculous. But, Austin decided to sue WWE. He won a settlement outside the court for $10 million. And honestly, his injury had a long-lasting impact on WWE. I feel like this is a huge reason why they kind of have NXT stars to kind of just bring them up, kind of get them used to fighting in the squared circle, so nothing bad like this ever, ever, ever does happen in the history of WWF. So, absolutely, like now he had a broken neck and he's fully paralyzed. But I don't know. This is something that WWE took in consideration and ultimately kind of changed the dynamic of how wrestling stars come to WWE, which was honestly probably a huge blessing in disguise. Absolutely, 110%. Last, we're going to talk about Tyson Kidd. Tyson Kidd was a legitimate in-ring talent. He was part of the Hart Dynasty. Davey Boy Smith Jr. and Natalya, eventually becoming his partner. Samoa Joe in a dark match on WWE Raw hit a muscle buster that injured the spine of Tyson Kidd. And Kidd describes it as losing feeling in your whole entire body for 5 minutes. That's scary. That's terrible. That's absolutely something that's unforgivable. That's crazy. Imagine like the fear, the emotion, like oh, like just laying there like what just freaking happened right now. Probably unsure of your future, probably unsure of your whole entire life. Imagine like, oh, I'm never gonna walk again. I'm never gonna walk again. Like if this really doesn't like kind of take in fruition in your mind, like imagine waking up tomorrow morning from your bed not being able to move any limbs for like 5 minutes. It would scare the holy shit out of you guys. It would scare the living hell out of me, of course. Absolutely, 110%. I remember one time I woke up, I think I slept on my shoulder. I think I was like something like this. And like it was like numb. I cut off like circulation. I was like trying to move it. It wouldn't move. And I was like, oh, oh, like I was freaking out, man. Like, but of course I got the feeling back into it, like, a couple minutes later, and I was like, oh, I didn't lose my arm, but no, like, I know it has, this is nothing, comparing to Tyson Kidd, his injury and stuff like that. But Kidd was, he was airlifted to 5 different hospitals, ultimately ending his career. Obviously, the guy is in very good shape, great in-ring talent. His girl's Natalia. She's also very dynamic as well in the wrestling industry. It would be pretty awesome to see him coming back, but he's not. He's not, because these are injuries that happen in wrestling that happen in a blink of an eye, and then bam, sucks, absolutely sucks. Because who knows what Tyson Kidd would have done if his career stayed afloat in the WWF/WWE or NXT for that matter. Well, guys, don't go anywhere. We're running out of time, but we're gonna squeeze in that last segment. We have our superstar spotlight of the week. We have Swerve Strickland. So hey, don't go anywhere.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, all right, all right. We are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your boy E here with all the cool WWE factoids, AEW, Ring of Honor, TNA Impact, yada yada yada. So let's get right on into it. We're gonna talk about our superstar spotlight of the week. We have Swerve's house, Swerve Strickland's house. Absolutely, he's totally killing it in AEW. Love it for Swerve. Love it for my boy. So yeah, let's go ahead and get right on into it. So Tony Khan has recently been caught saying that he thinks that Swerve Strickland is going to be such a great champion for AEW. He's a great face and representative for the company. We're very lucky to have Swerve Strickland as our AEW World Heavyweight Champion. And honestly, it's true. Swerve Strickland, so far as the AEW champion, even before that, he was just absolutely like for the company. He came out every week, busted his ass off, performing great matches. So there's no doubt in my mind that he really honestly deserved the respect of having a title kind of, brought upon him. Like he kind of, he beat Samoa Joe, the submission, the impossible. He, the Samoan submission machine. I don't know why I keep messing that up, but very, very good for Swerve. He was the first ever African American to wear the AEW World Heavyweight Championship for the company. He was born September 30th, 1990. He was known as Shane Strickland to independent wrestling fans. He began his independent wrestling career back in 2008. He's won major titles for promotions such as Major League Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone Wrestling, and obviously the Lucha Underground. But that was in 2019. He actually performed in Lucha Underground as Killshot. Obviously, you see on the screen right now, my man had a mask, doing crazy stuff. Love that, man. If you look at that picture right now, like he looked like he got yoked. Looked like he got crazy yoked. Hopefully, maybe he has the number for his trainer that can help me out. Like, I could be the next kill shot, bro. Like, let's make this happen. Let's make I'll stretch here so I don't pull a hammy. Just kidding. No. Like I said, he was in Lucha Underground. 2019, he started his career in WWE. He worked as Isaiah Swerve Scott. NXT, he was on Hit Row, and he won the North American Championship. Very, very prestigious champion title inside the WWE NXT. He made it to SmackDown, and like I kind of like hint before, and if you guys have been paying any attention to like how my podcasts kind of go, is that when Vince McMahon was in control and WWE NXT superstars made it to the main roster, ultimately they got kicked down. They weren't, no one handled them well. Nobody knew what to do with their storylines and stuff like that. So ultimately, Swerve Strickland was released from the WWE. He made it to AEW. He formed a tag team with the man you see right there, Keith Lee, winning the AEW World Tag Team titles. Eventually, they did, kind of split because Swerve, turned on Keith Lee. But that's just wrestling. That's just wrestling right there. His real name, Stephen Strickland. He was born in Tacoma, Washington. His father was a sergeant first class cook in the U.S. Army, which is actually pretty cool. I'm like, damn, he was a cook. I'm a cook. I work as a cook at like a senior living facility in Temecula, California, and I love it. I love it. It's cool. I also like serve tables and stuff like that. Not to brag, but no, I'm just kidding. No. But I think it's cool the way people kind of take food and they kind of turn their passion into it. And I got to be honest, like when I cook and stuff like that, even when I'm at home, I have a nice little glass of wine. If I'm barbecuing outside, I have a couple of beers, and I'm like, oh man, like this is relaxing. This is cool. This is food. This is the culinary arts. They say in the past that arts, kind of bring out the creative order inside your soul. And sometimes when you're cooking, you're frying some steak inside of a pan, and you're like, you know what? Some salt on that stuff. Put some pepper, put some seasoning salt, maybe a couple of rosemary, maybe some freaking, thyme or whatever. Like it's just, it's cool. It's all gravy, baby, 110%. So, honestly, with cooking comes, passion. So honestly, I thought that was, pretty badass to find that. He attended Donegal High School in Pennsylvania, Mount Joy, Pennsylvania, where he was a dancer. He danced at a couple of his talent shows, which is pretty cool. And also he excelled in football, basketball, and track and field. And I got to be honest, when I looked at people performing in track and field when I was in high school, I was like, what? These people are running for the fun of it? Crazy. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm like, dude, like, why? Like, I played baseball. I played baseball a lot. I also played football and basketball, but mostly it was baseball. And I don't know, like running for the fun of why do people do that? If those, watching this right now, if you excelled in track and field, and if you want to tell me how you feel and your experience in track and field, the GSMC podcast.net. Tell me, everything. Maybe we can even have you on the show or something like that. No, I'm just kidding. Like, no. Well, no, leave your tip, leave your chat. Let's talk about this. Are you running for a reason? I don't know why. Whenever I think about people like running for no reason, I think of like Forrest Gump. Like, you can go your own way. And like one day I just decided to stop running. And no, I'm just kidding. No, and I know that might be, I'm not trying to anger any of you guys. Okay, moving on. This is a wrestling podcast, not a Forrest Gump podcast. Sadly, because Forrest Gump was one of the best movies ever made. And no, just kidding. Moving on. He enlisted. He followed his father's footsteps and enlisted in the army when he was 17 years old. And in the past, he was also a hip hop artist. Performs under the name of Swerve, the Realist, which is pretty cool. He also hosts a podcast with Montezi called Swerve City Podcast. And honestly, I'm probably going to check that out tonight. Love podcasts. Podcasts are kind of the new thing. Some of the best podcasts that I've ever seen are definitely part of the GSMC Podcasting Network and the GSMC Sports Network. So don't miss on that. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed my show. Absolutely love being here. Love talking to you guys. I want you guys to leave with anything today. I guess the lesson of today is if you're going to run, make sure you're running for a reason and you're not doing track and field. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to hit Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show and leave a positive review. Peace, love, and positivity all the way. It really does make a difference, guys. We love peace, love, and positivity. Leave a positive review. Once again, I do love criticism. Negative reviews are welcome, although don't make me cry. I'm just kidding. No. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter/X, Instagram, TikTok for more content and updates. And like I said before, if I haven't made you a WWE fan by now, we have a football offseason heating up. Probably within the offseason, you're going to see like a lot more trades amongst NFL teams. You have my man Kenneth on the football podcast. You also have Manny on the Chip Shot football podcast, TJ Sports, Jeremy Sports, Blake on Sports. Like these guys are going to be talking about the hottest things that are happening in your favorite sports. So if you're not watching them, what are you doing? I'm just kidding. No. We also have the NBA playoffs heating up. Hit up my man Nelson on the GSMC basketball podcast. But I'm your Wrestling Laureate Podcast. I do love to dabble myself in other sports. Would absolutely love to, talk. I talked baseball once with Sam on the baseball podcast. Absolutely. It was just delightful. It was amazing. It was cool. Thank you once again, and have a phenomenal day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.